You should be grateful he puts up with you, Shelby, my mother-in-law said sharply, her tone dripping with disdain. I froze, shocked by her words. My husband, Robert, didn't stand up for me. Instead, he just grinned, almost as if he agreed with her. Enough is enough. My heart pounded as I finally snapped, my voice rising with the frustration I had bottled up for far too long. But little did I know, that moment was just the beginning of a nightmare, one that Robert and his mother had carefully crafted for me. My name is Deborah, and I am 32 years old. I was once married to Robert, a man 5 years younger than me. The age gap between us hadn't been an issue at first. But as time went on, things began to change, and our differences became glaringly obvious. I met Robert at a party hosted by my friend, Michaela. She and Robert were workout buddies, and when she introduced us, she did it with her usual teasing flair. Hey, Robert, meet my geeky millionaire friend, Deborah, Michaela said with a mischievous smile. Michaela, stop embarrassing me, I said, my cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Don't be embarrassed, it's a compliment, she laughed. I blushed, thanking her, and she added, I could have also called you Beauty with Brains. Well, you're right about that. She definitely is a beauty with brains, Robert chimed in, flashing a charming smile. As Michaela left us alone to mingle, Robert turned to me, curiosity in his eyes. Why did she call you geeky? He asked. I smiled. I'm an engineer at a software company, so I'm always busy with work. That's how I got the nickname Geeky. That's awesome, he said, clearly impressed. You must be making a great salary, which makes you a geeky millionaire. I laughed. Yeah, you could say that. We spent the rest of the evening talking, and I found Robert to be both charismatic and sweet. Soon, we started seeing each other regularly. He'd pick me up from work, take me out for coffee or dinner, and always made time for me despite his job as an assistant at a small company. A few months into our relationship, Robert proposed. I was in love with him, but his proposal felt rushed. The age difference, which hadn't mattered before, suddenly felt like a concern. Are you sure about this, Robert? I asked hesitantly. It's a huge step, and you're younger than me. He smiled gently. We've been together long enough, Deborah. Age doesn't matter, love does. He dismissed the idea that a husband should be older than his wife, calling it an old-fashioned belief. Despite my concerns, he convinced me that our love would make our marriage a happy one. When we introduced each other to our families, my father remained silent, but my mother was vocal about her concerns, particularly about the financial imbalance between us. Deborah, are you sure about this? She asked one evening. You know men can sometimes struggle with a woman earning more than them. I reassured her. We've talked about finances, Mom. Robert isn't bothered by the fact that I earn more than him. She frowned. Just be careful. Money can cause problems in ways you might not expect. Her words lingered in my mind, making me realize that Robert and I had never discussed his financial situation in detail. I remembered how he had asked about my salary before proposing, but I had brushed it off, too caught up in the excitement of our future together. Our honeymoon in Hawaii was magical, a trip paid for by my company. We reveled in each other's presence, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But a month after our wedding, Robert sat me down one evening, his expression unusually serious. Deborah, I need to ask you for a favor, he said. My stomach clenched. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Not exactly. He sighed. My parents are struggling. They live in a second-floor apartment with no elevator, and climbing the stairs is becoming too difficult for them. I want to build them a house. I was taken aback. Building a house? That's a huge expense, Robert. Are you financially prepared for that? Or do you plan to take out a loan? He hesitated before answering. Actually, I was hoping you could lend me the money. I felt a jolt of unease. Robert, that's a large amount. I don't think I can just lend you that much. It shouldn't be an issue for you, Deborah. You have a stable income, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. I was torn. I didn't want to refuse outright, so I told him I needed time to think it over. That night, I lay awake, weighing his request. I had worked hard to save for my own future. Could I really just hand over my savings? Seeking advice, I spoke to a colleague who suggested drawing up a formal agreement. If I was going to lend Robert the money, he needed to sign a contract ensuring he would pay me back. It was the only way to protect myself. When I got home, I told Robert the first was willing to lend him the money, but he had to repay it within 2 years. To my surprise, he agreed. However, when I insisted he sign official documents, his reaction was unexpected. You're serious? he asked, laughing in disbelief. Yes, I'm very serious, I said firmly. Though he gave me a skeptical look, he reluctantly signed the contract. But even after finalizing the agreement, I couldn't shake my doubts. Then things began to change. Robert started coming home late, neglecting his household responsibilities. When I confronted him, he brushed off my concerns, claiming he was busy with work. But on weekends, he was always mysteriously absent, supposedly overseeing the construction of his parents' house. Suspicious and frustrated, I confronted him directly. Robert, you've been acting strangely. You seem to be living off me. What's going on? His response was defensive. Living off you? That's a bit harsh. You've been relying on my income since we married, and you haven't contributed anything to our household, I pointed out. You knew what I earned when we got married, he said casually. His nonchalant attitude infuriated me. Then why did you marry me? He shrugged. I'm not in the mood for an argument. I'm looking forward to the housewarming party tomorrow. I was stunned. That house was built with my money, and you didn't even tell me about a party? Oops. Must have slipped my mind, he said with a smirk. Feel free to come if you want. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. Hours later, my mother-in-law called. So, are you coming? She asked coldly. I knew Robert must have pressured her into inviting me. I didn't want to go, but I feared they would gossip about me being jealous if I didn't. Reluctantly, I agreed to attend. But only for a short while. When I arrived, the house was beautifully decorated, and Robert and his mother stood at the entrance, greeting guests. The moment she saw me, her expression changed. She wasn't expecting me, and something told me I wasn't welcome. I didn't think you'd come, my mother-in-law muttered, her voice laced with hostility. Robert, sensing the tension, quickly ushered me inside before things could escalate. As I stepped into the grand living room, I immediately spotted my father-in-law sitting alone in a corner. Unlike his wife, he greeted me with warmth, his wrinkled hands clasping mine in gratitude. We really appreciate your help with the house, Deborah, he said sincerely. For the first time that evening, I felt a flicker of pride. At least someone acknowledged the effort I had put in, something Robert and his mother had never once done. The party dragged on, filled with distant relatives making idle conversation. Neither Robert nor his mother spoke to me much, and I spent most of the evening counting down the minutes until I could leave. As the guests began to disperse, I made my way toward my father-in-law to say my goodbyes. But before I could reach him, my mother-in-law intercepted me. You shouldn't pretend to care about my husband when you can't even manage your own marriage, she snapped, her words venomous. I blinked in disbelief. What are you talking about? I've been trying to hold things together, but Robert hasn't been helping at all. You should be grateful he puts up with you, she hissed, her eyes narrowing. He's had to tolerate you, and now you expect him to repay the money you supposedly lent him? That's cruel, Deborah. I clenched my fists. That's absurd. I never tortured anyone. I shot back, my resentment bubbling over. Her insults only escalated. Just look at you. You should count yourself lucky anyone even married you. That was the breaking point. How dare you talk to me like that? I shouted, my fury finally spilling out. Before I could say another word, Robert stepped in, his voice sharp and authoritative. Don't you dare raise your voice at my mother. I turned to him, my breath catching in my throat. Are you serious right now? After everything she just said to me. Robert's face twisted into an expression I hardly recognized, one of utter contempt. I'm done, I said, my voice firm with finality. I'm not staying here and putting up with this any longer. I'm leaving. Robert scoffed, arms crossed. Leaving? Where will you go? You're not going anywhere. I stared at him, stunned. Excuse me? What did you just say? His glare was cold. I refuse to live with someone like you. You've been depending on my income all this time, and now you have the audacity to call me trash? You're pathetic, Deborah. You knew you could never get a man like me, not with your age and looks. That's why you married me, even though I don't earn much. So don't start complaining about money now. His words struck me like a slap across the face. The reality of my situation came crashing down. I had been deceived, manipulated into this sham of a marriage. I can't stand living with someone so shallow, I spat. I want a divorce. And I want my money back. Robert threw his head back and laughed cruelly. Divorce? You think you can just walk away? If you want out, you're going to have to pay me. Then, with a wicked grin, he added, Oh, and by the way, I've already taken all the important documents from our joint bank locker. I froze, my mind reeling. What? His smirk widened as he watched my shock unfold. I stormed out of the house, my pulse pounding in my ears. The moment I reached the bank, my worst fears were confirmed. Robert had accessed our joint account, the one I had been the sole contributor to. Checking my wardrobe at home, I discovered that even the copy of the loan agreement I had kept there was missing. It all became painfully clear. Robert had played me from the very beginning. His interest in me had never been about love. It had always been about my salary, my stability. He had lived off my earnings, manipulated me into funding his parents' house, and now, he had taken everything he could before throwing me aside. But what he didn't know was that I had been cautious. I had kept the original documents safe at my parents' house, with additional copies secured at the bank. Without wasting another moment, I called my mother and told her everything. Her voice trembled with anger. "We should sue him and his mother for what they've done to you," she fumed. "I never trusted that man. Why didn't you tell me?" I sighed. I thought I knew what I was doing. She exhaled deeply. "I always had my doubts, but it wasn't my place to interfere. I should have spoken up sooner." Her words made me reflect on my own mistakes. I had lied to myself when I said Robert and I had discussed finances. I had never actually asked him about his salary. I had simply assumed it didn't matter. Mom's voice softened. "Next time, don't trust so easily. Be careful with your heart." Fueled by her support, I wasted no time in hiring a lawyer. The divorce papers were drawn up, along with a formal demand for repayment. If Robert failed to pay within 2 years, the court would seize his property to recover my money. The moment he and his mother received the legal notice, they were blindsided. My phone exploded with desperate calls, but I ignored every single one. Even when Robert tried reaching out to my parents, they refused to entertain him. In a final, pathetic attempt, he left me a voicemail. "I'm so sorry," his voice trembled. "I love you. Please forgive me. It was all my mother's idea. She made me do it. I know I made mistakes, but can't we work things out?" I deleted the message without hesitation and blocked his number. Even when his lawyer tried to negotiate a reduced repayment amount, I stood my ground. He wasn't getting off that easily. Over the next 2 years, Robert struggled to pay back what he owed. He was forced to sell the very house he had built with my money and eventually moved back in with his parents. His reputation took a hit at work, and after facing relentless criticism, he quit his job and relocated to another city, abandoning his mother, who was left to live with his brother in the countryside. One day, Michaela called me, her voice brimming with amusement. "You won't believe it," she said. "The whole neighborhood is talking about Robert and his mom. They're struggling so much that Shelby's working as a nanny now." I felt nothing. No sympathy, no pity. They had brought this upon themselves. As for me, I was finally free. And in that newfound freedom, I found happiness again. I had moved on, carefully, cautiously, into a new relationship. Arlo, a 38-year-old colleague I had known for years, had been a steady presence in my life, and in time, our friendship had blossomed into something deeper. But this time, I was in no rush. This time, I was taking things slow. This time, I knew better. And as I looked ahead, I saw a future filled with peace, clarity, and most importantly, on my own terms.